In past videos, I show how I pass from the MVC architecture to multi-layer architecture, and I talked about the solid principles and explained each one. I show how you implement the DTO pattern in an application, show how to implement the expose an interface to add a layer in the application, show how you can do validations in the application, and how to get the errors from that validation and show to the user, and the correct way to expose the problem details for the different APIs. Now in this video I'm going to talk about testing and show you how to implement the testing in the different layers. First, I'm going to start implementing the testing in the repository layer. Then I'm going to show how to implement the testing, the unit testing in the services layer using Mockito to mock the different requests to the repositories. And finally, I'm going to show how to implement the unit testing in the controller layer. And there I'm going to use the Mockito again to mock the request for the controller and perform the different requests for the different methods. With that, let's do the video. Okay, to add the unit testing for our project, the first thing that we are going to do is go to the hotel app test class and check. This is a default class that provide the Spring Boot started when we create the project. This class is in the folder test, how you can see, and here in this section I'm going to add the unit testing for our project. The first thing that I'm going to do is create the repositories folder, and here I'm going to create the reservation repository test to test the reservation repository. With that, I'm going to define a class, and in this class I'm going to tell that here I'm going to use this class to test the GPA or the Data-jpa test. And here we need to configure the database that we are going to use. To do that, I'm going to use the annotation auto-configure database, test database, this one. And here I'm going to say that the connection should be to the H2 database. With that, we configure that this class will connect to the database H2, but we need to tell what is the connection string or the parameters that we are going to use to connect to the database. To do that, I'm going to define or create a new profile, the testing profile, and in this testing profile, let's go to the application.jar, and in this test file I'm going to define the properties that the application will take when run the unit testing, and here I'm going to copy and paste here, but let's do add dash test. With that, I created this file. This file is the or contain the properties that we are going to use to connect. This way, in this way, when we use this application.jam to run the application, we will have the parameters to run in dev or production or another environment, generally in dev, to run in this application. Go back to the reservation test and add the annotation auto configure profile or active profiles, this one, active profiles, and tell that this is for test profile. And with that, the application now, when we run this class, will search for the profile that we just created and use the properties defined in that file. Next, let's define the test method to test the method create public void create. The naming of the methods, you can define the standard for each team, but I used to name them the methods for tests, starting with test, the name of the class that I'm going to test, the method, and the status or response that I'm going to check. In this case is the status okay or good status. And now with that, okay, you can, if this name is not described for you or for the team, you can use the annotation, this display name, and here you can put a description or what is the meaning of this test. In this case, I'm going to put test reservation repository to create method to return the okay status. Okay, for example, and this will be used for some IDEs or some tools to organize or show this message to the console or display these messages when we put the name of the method in the cursor. Okay, continue with our test. Let's to see what is the what we need to test. Let's go to the reservation repository. Reservation. I didn't create the reservation repository. Okay. Let's to create the reservation repository. And here I'm going to define an interface to tell that this interface extends from JPA, JPA or Data-jpa. No, it is JPA repository, this one. And here I'm going to test the repository entity. Reservation class from the model. And here I'm going to use, I don't remember, it is a long or it's a long, and here the ID is a long. Okay, cool. Now created the repository, and I'm going to test the creation for this repository in the test class. Let's to create the repository reservation class, reservation, and create a new object. And here the reservation that I want to save is for the date int. Okay, another recommendation to create these objects. How you can see, I can tell or define this method this way, and here write the date that we want to save, but it is a little verbose. Change date, set dating, excuses. Okay, we can continue defining these attributes for this class, but one of the best way, or one pattern that we can use to create this object is the builder pattern. The builder pattern is one of the 5 most known creation pattern. It is good to know about the different patterns that we use in the software development, and the creational pattern, behavior pattern, and the structural pattern. Okay, in this case I'm going to use a creational pattern naming builder. To do that, let's move to the reservation model, and here I'm going to put the annotation builder from Lombok, and this annotation will be create the boilerplate to implement the builder pattern in this class. And it's required to add this annotation, the node args annotation, all args annotation, and no args annotation. Okay, from Lombok, and these two annotations required to implement this repository or reservation object in our model. With that in place, now we can say that this model have a method builder. This method is injected from Lombok, and now we can say that this object I'm going to create using the builder pattern, and the date in is this one. Let's copy this date in, and the date out is, for example, 5/8/2025, and the cost for this reservation is $200, and build to delete. And how you can see, this pattern allow us to create in an easy way the different objects. It is recommended for objects that you need to create the different attributes one by one. Okay, cool. I want to mention how the unit testing is defined, or how you can define the unit testing. The standard way is that we have a section for the given or the different attributes that we need to configure previously to execute the action. And the execute the action is in the then section. And finally, we need to verify that the action that we did are correct, and all the data is mapped or do the action in the correct way. And this section is the given when excuse me, then when change when is the section to perform the action, and the then section is to validate this action. Another way to remember these sections is the 3A, create, and the 3A is for first the assets, the act, and the assets. And here you can see that the goal is the same. You first have a section when you set up your data or the things that you need to perform an action, and in the when or act section you perform the action, and in the then or assets section you verify that the action is correct. This definition is here, should be here in this section, and it indicates that given this object reservation, now I'm going to perform the action. What action I going to test? First, go to the reservation. Okay, no. The action that I'm going to perform is from the repository. To perform this action, let's define the private reservation repository interface repository. Okay, and here I'm going to perform from the repository variable the create or save action, and here I'm going to send the reservation variable that I created, and this is the action that I'm going to test in our unit test. And here this method in the save section, how you can see, return the saved entity, and this entity will never be null, because if the entity doesn't exist in the database, the framework create this entity, and if exists in the database, this action update this entity. And here I'm going to define the return reservation, the return object reservation 2, for example, or saved reservation. Okay, save it. Okay, let's delete the 2. Okay, now in the asset section, I'm going to the assert section, I'm going to use the assertions from the _j framework or libraries, and this assertion is have a method that this define the assert that in this case the reservation saved variable should not is not null, should not be null. Okay, perfect. Okay, this is the first validation that we created for our reservation. Let's to put another one. This is for the get ID, or ID should be not null. The same apply, for example, for the date in, and we can validate that date in is equal to the reservation variable that get date in. Perfect. And let's to run this one, maybe clean and test, and with this command I'm going to run the test for our first class to test the repository, the reservation repository. And here let's wait to finish it, the testing, and wait what is going on. First start the sprint environment and run the test. Okay, I can see an error here. Let's check null pointer cannot invoke the repository. That repository is null. Let's check why. Okay. The error is because I forget to annotate this, the auto wired. Okay, let's run again, and you can see I put the auto-where annotation, but the best practice is to use the inject the dependency in the constructor. I'm going to let it for the moment, but in the next unit testing I'm going to show you how you can inject, or how you should inject the dependencies in the creation of the class. Cool, you can see now this is the response. The test run is 2 and it is in green, it is okay. And the reason why it's 2, because this is the first one, and the default test, this one is an MP1, but is the default and run. Now let's back to the reservation repository test. Okay, you can ask why we test or how we use this in the real life project. This is a basic one, but you can use the unit testing and to test more complex queries. For that, I'm going to show you in this moment an example. For example, let's say that in our case we have different reservation, and I want to update all the reservation that cost 200 to 300. For that, I need a custom query, and I'm going to create the custom query in the repository. Here I'm going to define a method, public, and here this return an int, and I'm going to name it the update cost, for example, and here receive an int for the cost and the new cost. Now I'm going to define the query. With the query annotation, we can define the query that I'm going to use to perform this new action. For example, let's do update the reservation. Let's do copy and paste the reservation entity, because this entity should be the same. Okay, and set let's name into R. Here R that cost equal to new cost, and where the R that cost, I have a error here, cost, and R that cost should be equal to the new cost variable. Okay, and it's required to add the annotation modifying from the JPI repository. Okay, and now we have a query. This query is to update the cost that we sent to the new cost. Let's go back to the testing class, to repository test. Okay, here and here let's to create a new test method, test to public void test. For example, let's to copy the name, test reservation repository create node. It is okay, it is update cost, and return okay. And here I'm going to tell that I need a reservation. First, I'm going to use two entities to save, and the two entities I'm going to update with the new value of the cost. It's recommended to pass this data to the beginning, to the beginning of the class. And here we can define this new object, but first we need to define or recreate this object every time we run the different methods. To do that, we need to write the before each each method. Setup before each, and here I'm going to refresh the reservation object. Let's do copy here, and reservation object is equal to this. With this, I can use the reservation in this method, and we can use the reservation in the second one. And here, for this, to show this update, I'm going to create another object, another entity, reservation 2. And here it is pretty similar to this one. Let's copy this one, and here the cost is 200, but I'm going to change to the year. Okay, and here in the when, this is the given part. Now the when part is save these objects, and to save this object I'm going to use the repository.saveAll method. Save all, and this method receive a list of objects. To do that list, I'm going to use the list of method of the two objects, reservation and reservation 2 objects. Okay, and this object return, let me check what return. Return save entities will never know, then return iterable will have the same size of the iterable. Okay, and this should return a list of reservation entities, list of reservations. Okay, perfect. And now we saved all the two entities in our database. Now I'm going to perform call the method to update the cost for our reservation. Let's use the repository gain here and use the update cost method that we previously defined, and here I'm going to pass the cost, that the new cost. Okay, I have a wrong name in here. Cost and new cost. Okay, this is the error. Okay, yes, and the cost is here. Okay, cost. Perfect. Okay, and here the cost could be 200 pass to 300. Okay, cool. Int it is a string and string. Okay, maybe in the future we need to change the cost from string to an int or double. Save, and here this update cost will return the number of entities or record that we updated. In this case should be 2, and to validate that I'm going to in the section then I'm going to validate this. I'm going to do assertions that assert that let's do use or decline the number of updated rows. Number of updated rows is equals to 2. And the list of reservation, let's copy here the list of reservation updated. First validate not null, is not null here, and let's to validate that the size list number. No, I don't copy this one. This one is not null, and here the size should be 2. Is equal to 2. Perfect. Let's to test this new method. Let's to verify the cost. Okay, we can check if the new data is correct here. This way, let's copy let's that size in the that get in the 0 position that cost get cost is equal to 300. Okay, the previous validation or the previous execution run well. Now to run the test that we added this validation. The cost should be 300. Let's wait to finish it. Okay, I have an error here. Let's to review what is going on. The reservation repository expected 300 but was 200. Okay, let's move to check what is going on here. Save all. Okay, this is the first time that I saved the list, but I need to return the list from after the updated cost. Find all. Okay, save and cost here. Okay, one important thing to do when we are working with the unit testing is to be sure that the repository flush the data and update the data in memory or the objects in memory. To do that, I'm going to add the clear data to true. Perfect. With these two changes, I think that we are done with this unit test. Let's run and wait to finish it. The test passed. It's green now, and all the two tests in the repository passed. Okay, there are more methods, but this is the resume for how you can test the repositories and how to test the custom queries in our repositories. Now let's to test the service layer, and to do that, let's to create the services layer in the for test, and here I'm going to test the guest service implementation test.java. Okay, perfect. In this class, I'm going to test the service implementation layer, service implementation here. And now I'm going to test, for example, this one. It's an easy one to start. And here I'm going to test the create method. And for that, I need to say that I'm going to extend this class to use Mockito. extends with Mockito extension that class. Okay, with this annotation, I'm going to tell to the test framework that I'm going to use this class with Mockito. Let's define our first test method, public void test, and the class that I'm going to test is guest services, and the method that I'm going to test is create to OK. Okay, and here the first thing that I'm going to do is to check what is the dependencies here for this class. Here I have 3 dependencies or 2 dependencies for the guest service implementation, and here I'm going to copy these 2 dependencies here. Let's import this one interface and the mapper interface. But to say to the test framework that we are going to use use integrated with Mockito, we need to define or define that that this is a mock. This is using the mock annotation, mock, perfect. And here I'm going to define the services that I'm going to call, for example, or in this case is guest service implementation, guest service implementation. Okay, for each test we need to before each we need to refresh or define the class that we are going to use. Set tab before each. Okay, and here I'm going to call or define the guest service implementation is equal to new guest service implementation, and I'm going to pass these 2 objects. And this way I'm going to pass in the dependencies to the guest service implementation, and this is the correct way to pass the dependencies, because we are not using all the dependence injection that provided from SpringBoot. Okay, now let's define the given section, then when and then section. In the given section, the method receive an object, guest DTO. Let's copy this one here, and I'm going to define this guest DTO. It should be the new guest DTO, and here define the guest. Let's import this guest DTO first, and let's create this. The ID is a new guest DTO. Let's map to null. It's new, and let's for example, the name is manual test. And here the reservation, let's put at the moment, let's put a list from the util class of MP. Okay, and save. And here we have our first method. Now I need to perform this call. Let's copy this. And here, when this method is called, this one mapped guest from guest DTO, we need to return our custom object. To do that, I'm going to use the Mockito class to use the when method. and here I'm going to paste the method that I want to call, and then return our new object. Okay, and here, for example, is a guest, an entity called guest, and here let's to import this guest entity first, and here let's to define or build. We can build the guest that build. Okay, let's check if we have with the annotation. We don't have. I'm going to add the annotations. No args constructor and args constructor. Okay, with that in place, I can use the builder pattern to create the name. Okay, the ID, because the ID is null in this moment. I'm going to create the name. Let's to move this name as a string name, and here let's copy this one and use the variable. Okay, copy and change name, and here is a name, and the reservations is a list of nulls or empty list. Okay, let's save and let's do build this object. Perfect. Save, and here I'm going to pass the new entity, guest entity. Okay, guest. Perfect. And okay, cool. We have our first Mockito. With that, I'm going to tell you, or I am telling to the framework that when this method is called internally in our service, we want to return this object. Okay, this is the reason why I use Mockito to mock this method. Next, let's go to the service implementation to see what is the other thing that I need to do. Here we have to call to the guest repository. Let's copy, and here I'm going to use the Mockito again to say that when this method is called, I need to return our new object, and for that let's to create the object that I'm going to return. Guest saved equal to, it's pretty similar to this one, but this object is saved, so I need to add the ID to 1, for example, and here then return the guest saved object. Perfect. Cool. Let's continue with another one, and when this method is called, we need to return the guest DTO object. So when Mockito that when this call this method, then return the method saved and mapped. Let's to copy this one, and this is saved. Okay, and here is a new object. This DTO now have the ID 1. Okay, let's to return this one. Change to guest DTO saved. And here now we defined the when section. Now let's to return or call the services, the guest DTO response. For example, I'm going to call the guest service implementation that create and pass the guest that we previously defined. Okay, perfect. Now this is the returned object, and this object in the then part I'm going to assert assertions from assert_j that assert that, and here this object should not be null, is not null. Okay, perfect. This is one validation, and the other one could be this object that name is not null, and the object that name is equal, for example, change is equals to a name. Okay, perfect. We finished to the creation of this test guest service implementation method to test, and let's wait to run the test part here, and it should be run fine, and the test for the creation in our service layers it should be tested. Let's to check what is going on with this error. The error here is regarding to this invocation of this method. Let's check about this method in the guest mapper guest_dto from guest. Okay, let's check here and here. Okay, I have the method in. Okay, the method is this one. Let's copy and paste, and the object that we send is this one, and the method to return is correct. I think it is the error. Let's run again and wait to finish it. Okay, the execution finished, and we don't have errors, and the test finished with run the 4 tests that we have. Here you can see this is a test that we send and receive objects, and we mock most of the calls inside the services. But now I want to show you an example in the case that we by the requirement, for example, in this case we send this name, but when or after the save the response to our client should be with just the first name, for example. Let's do this change just to illustrate how the changes or the functionalities for our unit testing. Here we have the create method, and after this creation, let's do create a guest not trace, is response. Okay, let's do put this a null if if a guest DTO2 is different to null, and the name from guest DTO name is different to null, I'm going to create or assign to this new object the new guest DTO. The ID is the same ID that we created, it's the same, no problem with that. But here in the name I need to change, or I want to change to just return the first name of, in this case, the name, and I need to do a trim, and here the split, and the reject is an space, and here I need the 0 position, and the reservation is the same reservation, guess DTO 2 that reservations. Okay, cool, save it. Now return this object, guest reservation response or response variable. Okay, cool. Now if we run this test, this unit test, this should be fail because this validation is not met for our service layer. Now after this change, we need to change our unit test because I know it will fail, and you can see it fails because here you can see this this expected one or the first name and return two names. Here another thing that I want to show you is that we can say that we can define a description to show to the user and the logs. For example, the name should be only the first one. Okay, and correct. And here we need to change to manual. Okay, it should be run correctly. So let's wait to finish it. Okay, finish it, and the test pass it. And I show how you can create different validation for different requirements in the services layer. And with that, the last part that I want to show you is how to mock or test the controller in our application. To do that, let's to go to the controllers folders and create the guest controller test.java. And here in this class, I'm going to use the extension with Mockito extensions, mock extensions, Mockito extensions, this one, that class. Okay, and let's to create our first method or test for the controller. Public void, this is for to test the guest controller, and here the create method. Okay, response. Okay, perfect. Here let's check what we need for the controller to test the creation, excuses. Here we need the call or mock the call to create from a guest service. Perfect. Let's move to this and the object that we are going to pass is the guest.dto. Let's to define the guest.dto equal to new guest.dto. The ID it's null because it is not created. The name could be a manual test, and the reservation could be a list of an empty list. Okay, now let's to mock. I'm going to define first the service private service implement or service guest service, excuses, guest service interface guest service, and this could be I'm going to use mock from Mockito to mock this request. So now using Mockito, when this method this guest service method called base, then return guest DTO. Okay, we have to fix this one, DTO, and then return if I can spell, then return the object. I'm going to show you how to mock any request, and I'm going to change to this is the get DTO response, get DTO response, and with an ID, and here I'm going to change to argument matchers, okay, that any. With this I'm going to tell to the Spring Framework that no matter what parameter receive this method, I'm going to return this object, this one. Perfect. Okay, now let's perform the action. To perform the action, we need to define first the controllers, but we need to define first the controllers. Guest controller, and the mock MVC class from servlet, mock MVC, and the mapper. Let me change to add this private and the object mapper from Jackson binding. Perfect. This is to mapping the object request to JSON, okay, because the service expect and JSON, okay. Private. Perfect. Save. And to declare this this object, I'm going to use the before each public void before each. Oh no, yes, setup before each, and let's to declare this guest controller is equal to new guest controller, and passing the guest services that we previously mocked, and the mock MVC fields is equal to mock builder, mock MVC builders, this one that standalone setup, and the controller is the controller that we just created. Let's change to guest controller, and here let me check. Okay, an object mapper is equal to new object mapper. Time mismatch, let me check. I cannot convert, we need to build this constructor. Perfect. Now I'm going to call here in the method this result action actions from test web servlet, and result actions equal to MVC object mock MVC that the method is this one that return a result action performed. And here I need to define, let me check this method, receive a request builder. For the request builder I'm going to use the mock MVC request builder, this one, that build it's the builders from the servlet package. That okay. Perfect. And here I'm going to call the post, and the URI is the URI from the, I'm going to show controller, this one. Let's copy and paste and paste. Okay, and here we need to define the content type, post that content type, because we need to define that this is a JSON request. Media types that JSON, application JSON, and I need to define the content, and the content is the object that we are going to send. But we need to do a mapper, object mapper here to no, it should be a string, and the string is for guest DTO response here. Here no, this is for this is the response, and I'm going to create another one for the to send. Okay, and this is null, and the response should be this one. Paste. Let's save. Let me check what is the type exception. Let's put the exception. Here's exceptions. Okay, save, and now we defined the action. Now then we need to validate the results, and the result actions variable that this should be undo or and expect this one. Okay, and expect that the mock MVC response a result matcher that status the status is create or is created. And why it is created? Because in the controller, I'm going to show in the controller the status code that we are returning is the created status, and for that reason we need to validate that the status is the correct status. Let's run this test to verify that we are doing the right testing, and wait for it. Cool, finish it. and you can see the test run without problems and errors. And with this, we finished the section for testing. We saw how you can test the repository layer, the services layer, and the controller layers. It is important to test or create the unit test for the mapper. It is important in the sense that we need to guarantee that the data or the attributes from our entities is correctly mapped to our DTOs. And with this, we finished this testing section. And in the next video or the next section, I'm going to show how to run and Docker MySQL image and in the private network and connect to this application that we are developing in the public network. And I'm going to show you how you consume from outside our network, from outside consume the API request. And with that, let's continue with the next video.